I was drinking every day. I was overweight. I couldn't bend over to tie my shoes without gasping for breath. It hurt to go upstairs. Like life was just a lot tougher than it needed to be. You looked at me and you told me that I was in diabetic range and we need to get serious about this. I looked at you and I said, I'm not willing to go on medication. I want to do this with activity and changing my lifestyle habits. You can change. You can do it. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be an imperfect journey. Success looks like an imperfect plan done consistently.
Well, hello, and welcome to the next installment of Patients Win. We're excited to be here today with Cory Boehs, a patient of Dr. Jonathan Bushman, my co-host and partner. We're excited about the topic today and look forward to hearing more about your story, Cory. So, Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Cory, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
Awesome. Well, Cory, we go back several years, both as friends and now doctor patient. And, I was thinking about this. How did I ever even meet you in the first place? And funny story, we were actually at a thing called Man Day, and you want to talk about a bunch of testosterone out in a wheat field, shooting guns, driving cars, racing around dirt tracks, eating honey buns, drinking Dr. Pepper, and eating bacon. I mean, everything that you could consider to be manly, that's what we were trying to do that day. And you and I did something really stupidly manly, which is to get into this old clunker amongst about 20 other clunker cars. Now, granted, the great thing is we raised money to go drill wells in Africa, okay? So there was a point to this.
Yeah.
We got in these vehicles and just hit the gas as hard as we could in this little makeshift dirt track in the middle of a wheat field. And you and I were in a wreck that day, weren't we?
We were, but I mean, in our defense, neither one of us was driving.
True. It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. So yeah, that goes back a little ways. I mean, that's probably 7 years ago, and really we kind of knew who each other were, but not in the context of anything medicine. And fast forward some time, and you established in our clinic, and I got to know a little bit more about you, a little bit more about your story, both on the personal side and the health side. But take me to that time in your life and kind of tell me why. For one, why did you even consider going into a direct care model? And what was your expectation as a patient at that point?
Absolutely. So my wife, Suzanne, actually started with Reliant Healthcare first. And if my timelines may be off on this, but I would say she started maybe a year before I even came in. And here's the funny part of it. Then I had a business coach at that time. So I own a spray foam insulation business. And I had a business coach that she could, we were on Zoom and she could see it, that I was overweight. I'm pretty sure she could see the diabetes in my face even before I knew it. And she kept on me to go get blood work done. So finally, to check the box, I went and got blood work done. But then when Reliant reached out to me to go over the results with me, I never did that. So that was probably the end of 2021.
Mhm.
So then in 22, no, well, the end of 22, I knew that something had to change. Like I was drinking every day. I was overweight. I couldn't bend over to tie my shoes without gasping for breath. It hurt to go upstairs. Like life was just a lot tougher than it needed to be. So b- I got in control of my drinking. I decided to take a 3-month pause using I love my apps. I love my technology. I downloaded an app called Sunnyside and started tracking my alcohol and started realizing just how much I was drinking. And even me on a good week, I was still in the heavy drinker category. So I decided to pause for 3 months, no alcohol. And I mean, 15 I got through 15 days and it just my energy wasn't coming up, and so I'm like, "Okay, yep, I'm low on testosterone. It's time to get labs done. It's time to get testosterone." So that's what I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the first time I came to see you was that I'm like, "Look, get me on testosterone." And I loved your approach, Doctor Bushman. You didn't you didn't disagree with me, you listened, and you're like, "Okay, we're gonna do labs," and you ran the labs that I wanted, and then you called me and you're like, "Hey, I wanna run some more labs, there's some stuff, there's some more tests I wanna do." And then that's when sat down with you, and that's when you looked me at me and you said, "Look, your A1C's at a 6.9, you're in diabetes range, and we need to get serious about this." And the timing could not have been better because, if I would have done what I should have in 21 and came in and saw you, I wasn't ready to make those changes. And I am so grateful for you as a doctor on how you approached me. I felt seen and heard. I didn't feel like you were preaching down to me or that you were better than me. You were just there to help. And just that started off such an amazing chain of events. I would say you and I are better friends because of it, and that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, I remember it's interesting you see through the lens of various different patients and what their sort of maybe avoidances or maybe even assumptions are going to be about how doctors will respond to them. I mean, all the time people say, you're gonna yell at me. I'm like, I've literally 15 years, I've never yelled at a patient. Well, you're probably gonna make me feel like crap about the you know what? I actually probably won't. I'll probably first tell you
Mhm.
thanks for being honest with me and join the crowd. Welcome to being human, right? And this is an open space. It's a safe space to talk about that because, I go back a few years before we even started working together. I was doing some jail work. Did jail work for almost 4 years, and
That's where we met.
yes, that's it. That's right.
It was before the
Yeah,
car.
yeah, yeah. It's all coming back now. So, yeah, that I'll tell you from a personal and professional standpoint, what the jail work did for me was it made me dig really deep about really human suffering. And we think about human suffering in places where people literally have, I mean, literally, they don't have, with third world countries or even impoverished inner cities and rural areas and all these things. And those are all very true. People do suffer in different ways. But getting into that, where it's like, okay, I could judge these folks and say, you know what, you don't deserve me. You don't deserve my help. And I had the opportunity, and I call it that, an opportunity to help even murderers, which is weird on one hand, but this was a human who had a need, and to be able to learn how to just listen to that without thinking about what else has been done or potentially damaging to themselves and others. I credit that experience with being able to go into each visit very, very open to how we can help. But I am a little bit curious if you take us back even, because we did, looking back at your chart, we called you and you acknowledged the labs and we wanted follow up and zilch, right? Like just not there. And take me to that. What would you say was it fear? Was it denial? Or would you just say it was just life and you weren't ready?
I would say it was denial because and my labs, I'm grateful for those labs in 21 because I can see now that I was on that road. I wasn't into diabetic range with my A1C. My test wasn't at 152 yet, but I was headed that way. And it was denial that, I was using alcohol to cope with a business that I didn't want to be in. I was coping with anxiety for things I didn't want to face. I was, and that was just across the board. And pain wasn't bad enough yet to, I wanted to get my business coach off my back. I wanted her to quit bugging me about getting labs. So I got the labs done and then just hoped that she never followed up to see what those labs actually were. And
Right.
she didn't. So
Did that work?
winning and winning. But you know, I just put on another 30 pounds after that and felt like crap. So, no, I didn't win, right? But it's I think it's a story of showing up and giving someone the opportunity to change. She did that for me, and I wasn't ready. You showed up again, and as I look at my story, there's been a lot of times like that where someone has showed up finally, and then, Suzanne will look at me and she'll be like, "Dude, I've been telling you this for literally 10 years." And then you're just gonna listen to them and change? Like, what's
Right.
going on with that?
The way, Corey, I don't know if I've ever met a married couple that wasn't true about, spouse telling them something for
Yeah.
years. I've been telling you this. I've been telling you, don't listen to me. It just hits differently from a physician or from a coach. Yeah. So, it's sort of like you didn't want to know the truth.
No, I didn't.
You were kind of forced into. I Now I know. We brought context into the world of your business coach, and I brought context into the story of your health. So getting to that visit, and to be fair, I remember the look on your face. I do, and I've got a whole collection of a career of looking people in the eye when I tell them news that is challenging, and I know is going to be challenging. And I remember that look. Tell me about that moment when you realized and it hit you deeply that this is the time.
I'm very curious to see what you're gonna say that look was. So, and if you do, the story that I remember is that I squared my shoulders. It was tough, but it was time to change. Now, is that my brain telling me things? I'm curious on what your perspective of that was because, I mean, well, you know what? Here's my version of it. You looked at me and you told me that I was in diabetic range and that, yeah, my testosterone was low, but you weren't as nearly as concerned about that as my diabetic range. And you said, "Look, it's time if you want," I think I can't remember what the order of that conversation was, but I looked at you and I said, "I'm not willing to go on medication. I wanna do this. I wanna do this with activity and changing my lifestyle habits. I'm not willing to go on medication for it." And I can't remember if that it was before that or after that that you suggested Terra Health, or is it Terra
Mhm.
Health, their name?
Terra Health Coaching was
Terra Health Coaching.
at that point, that's what we decided, and you're right, and this is somewhat typical. Let me go back to the look on your face. If I were to describe it in one single word, it was defeated. It was a defeated look. Like, I'm not like, I can't talk myself out of this. I can't justify my way out of this. It was when reality sunk in that this lifestyle, these choices, where I'm at, what I'm doing isn't working and it's not going to work. And now it's showing up in places that people can see it and they can put it on a lab
Right.
report. And that's a somewhat similar thing that I see in folks when we deliver news that's tough is somewhat of a defeated. You'd gone through the denial phase long enough, but then it was just, okay, this is real. And I gave you options like I give everyone options. Interestingly, I start with nothing. You don't have to do anything. I mean, no one's that's the beauty of freedom and autonomy is that you don't have to do anything, but we can see what doing nothing is doing for you. And not a good recipe for long-term success in any fashion. And the next is, yes, you can do this on your own, or I can bring along some help that you can still do it on your own without medications per se, but we can dig in and get you a coach that's going to get to know you and help incrementally change you in your lifestyle. And that's really the direction that you decided, hey, that's what I want. That's what I want. I want to dig in. What did it feel like when you took that first step? Do you remember those first few days of deciding, okay, enough's enough. This is going to change?
This is so interesting because I believe you that I had that look of defeat. What's fascinating to me is how quickly I do not like to sit in discomfort. I like action, and so that's the way I remember that story, right? So, but the feeling when I took that step was there was there was immediate relief. I mean, if I remember right, like I left your office and got in touch with John Deeser at Terra Health Coaching, and we had a call within the week, and he got the coach, and we started working on it. And that was life-changing. The way that
Mm.
they went about it is absolutely amazing. It's still I still filter decisions and goals through, "Can I do this for the rest of my life sustainably, or is this gonna be a fad that I drop off in a week?" So
So this
Wow.
is almost 3 years ago, right, Corey, at this point?
so that was February of '23.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Wow.
So
coming up.
so so yeah, so tell me what happened. Obviously, when we prescribe lifestyle medicine and get you hooked up with health coaches, we generally do a 12-week intensive once a week, 30-minute, 45-minute sessions with the coach. And that's usually the prescription is that 3 month. But you not only did that, but you kept running with it. Tell us what was your response and outcomes in that course of time? What did you see and who did you find yourself becoming over that next year?
Wow, where do I start? So, I, uh, I worked with my coach, her name was Terry, and the first week, like, I filled out this they had an app and filled out everything but the kitchen sink on the app, and I'm kinda wondering what that's all about. But then we had our first call, and, I'm committed to change, but I'm kinda dreading it because, I mean, just like what you talked about before, like, is she gonna yell at me? Like, is she gonna give me this hardcore total lifestyle change that I've tried this. I did CrossFit for years. You and I did CrossFit together. In fact, I've tried all this stuff. And is this going to be another failed version or, another failed attempt at this? But she, she jumped on the call with me and she's just like, okay, what's one thing this week that you can make a change in that you can do for the rest of your life? And I think we started with adding more fiber into my diet. And so like, you know what? I was like, I can add a portion of vegetables to my meal. We didn't. Food, we didn't. There was she slowly brought on step by step things that we could do. And we would try something. At one point I committed to a 2-mile walk every day and that didn't work. It that just to try to, because if I walked a mile and a half, well, then I failed, right? But we instead set up a step goal, and then I just started surpassing that. Back to that first call, though, one of the things that I was working through is in April of '23, Suzanne and I were heading to an all-inclusive resort in Mexico. And, I mean, in the past, I had that was all about the alcohol for me. I'm like, "Terry, do I've made this commitment to myself. No one held a gun to my head and made this commitment of 3 months. Do I do I I've got a grasp on how to make a drinking plan, and I could do a drinking plan down there and limit myself to a drink or 2 a day or whatever." And she's like, "Corey, it's your choice. How would you just imagine feeling how you're gonna feel after that trip? Would you feel better moderating, or would you feel better sticking to your original commitment?" And I chose to stick with my original commitment. And that was one of the most empowering things I've ever done in my life, to be at an all-inclusive resort. Everybody else is drinking all day, and I was drinking my pineapple juice and club soda in my cup, and no one even knew. And I had a blast, absolute blast.
How did you find that some of those changes in those social circles occurred? And did you ever get any incredulous looks or what kind of responses did you get that were are memorable to you when you made those changes?
You know, so, yeah, I remember telling some people that I was fairly close to, and just, I hadn't told them that I was quitting drinking. It came up in conversation, and there was shock and fear because in looking back, that relationship, great folks, don't get me wrong on that, but my I was hanging out with them because it was a great excuse to drink, and that fear,
Wow.
I think unintentionally, I didn't mean to, but I shone a spotlight on what we were all getting together for, and, man, without beer goggles, that relationship changed, and, it is that there's been that, and that somewhat continues of there's consequences, and I will choose these consequences of getting healthy every day.
Corey, it's very interesting as you think about your journey up to this point. The foundation has been relationships because when you think about your wife signing you, Reliant doing the labs and Dr. Bushman, sort of just standing a mirror in front of your face and the coaches. And it's all about relationships. It's been the foundation of this. And so, what would you say to people, in our audience, people that are looking for how can I do this? How can I help myself in terms of relationship?
Boy, how deep do you wanna go on that one? So, relationship is so important. I mean, as humans, that's how we change. It's also important that your circle is your inner circle, I would say, is cheering you on and supporting you and looking you in the eye. You know, Suzanne and I had a conversation this morning about some of this of love isn't telling someone what they wanted to hear. You know, if Dr. Bushman would have looked at me and said, "Yeah, you're at 6.9, but bro, I mean, at least you aren't at a 12 a A1C of 12. Ah, you're all right. Just keep going." I probably would have turned back to alcohol at that point. So we don't change in a vacuum.
Mhm.
And a shameless plug for direct primary care. On the healthcare front, direct primary care is doing it right. I've never got the kind of support that I've got from Reliant Health. Not even close, and my whole family is that way.
Tell me about that, because I wanted to bring that out in you a little bit in your family. Tell me what the change for you personally did in your family, and perhaps even go beyond the walls of your own, family of 5.
So, at first, my health choices, like even adding veggies to my meals, Suzanne was very resistant. I'll put it nicely, because she thought that she was going to have to totally change how she was gonna cook. And then we went through this phase of, like, trying to be protein positive with noodles and all the things, and yeah, like, we had some growth challenges with that, but and then Suzanne got on board with changing our eating to be healthier, and then our 3 kids, we've got a girl and 2 boys. They ganged up on us at one point, and they're like, "Look it, this is BS. Like, we do not eat good anymore. You guys, this health kick, it is triggering. Like, you don't need to be doing this." And there may have been a walk or two involved with some intense conversations between Suzanne and I about how we were going to handle it. But we stayed the course. And so let's see. I mean, we got committed. I would say I got committed in March. Suzanne got committed in April, not committed to any institution, let me make that clear, to the health journey. And then the kids finally accepted it, I would say, by late summer. And the
Mm.
the the output of that, or the consequence of that, I can't remember. Our family of 5, we've lost over 100 pounds. No, we've lost over 200 pounds if we're gonna use weight as a scale of what we've done. But I mean, we went from a family of being pretty much sedentary to we're all active. We all take walks. I mean, Christmas Day, we had a great dinner, and then we all went out and took a 2-mile walk, and everybody's happy, everybody's smiling, and just having a great time. There's a video I could share of us. My boys have started working out. That Case, my middle son was pretty much. I mean, we were both close to 280 pounds. The guy is just he's cut, he's chiseled, he's fell in love with the gym. Our youngest son has slimmed down. I mean, it's been amazing. And then my extended family, like my parents, they've went through the Health coaching. They've
Mm.
made healthier
Wow.
choices. Dr. Bush, well, there's HIPAA, but I mean, my sense is they're not on near the medications that they used to be. They're doing a lot better. I mean, when I go home for a meal, I grin because there's there's different choices being made, and it's really cool to see.
That's amazing. When you think about that ripple effect, not just your house, but beyond your 4 walls. That's awesome.
So, I'll tie it in a little bit here for what it's done for you, even in a spiritual sense, Corey. I had seen a video on Facebook one day, because you're pretty good about posting sort of reflections along times that you're out walking, and being fairly, out in the open to show like what you're doing with your family and how it's changed your relationships and such. And I remember I called you one day and I said, "Hey, I saw this video of you worshiping on Facebook the other day, and I thought that was pretty cool." And I'm sure you're scratching your head going, "What is he talking about? What is he talking about?" It was a video of you walking alongside a lake, taking notice of the frogs alongside the trail, the sunset, I believe, and just the crispness of the air. And I'm guessing we didn't know each other as well, but I'm guessing 3, 4 years ago, number 1, you wouldn't have been on the walk. Number 2, you wouldn't have been admiring those things. Tell me what that change for you from a physical and nutritional standpoint has done for you spiritually.
You know, I've learned how to confront challenges or things that I don't want to face more head on. I'm not going to say that I'm where I want to be, but rather than hiding or not facing something, I face the uncomfortable. Yeah, I think you know this, Jonathan. Spirituality is a challenge for me. For the audience, I grew up in a very conservative Mennonite group, and yeah, the concept of God was very top down and very laid out, and that has not worked for me. I mean, and yeah, I think you get this. I've found more God in nature than I ever have inside of four walls of any building.
We've talked about that, and there's a reason I brought that up. I continue to challenge you and to help you recognize God's presence in your world, and not necessarily in the context that you originally procured it, right? And I love that. And to me, not only personally but professionally for my patients, I'm not the guy that pushes that or ever tries to make anyone uncomfortable whatsoever. But our spiritual health is so incredibly important. And while you over the years have talked so much about what's happened in your physical health, and you look at a scale and it looks different, and you look at an A1C and it looks different, and you look at all these various different pieces, the one thing that we don't measure clinically is spiritual health.
Mm, right.
We don't have a metric for that.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm sure you do have an app for that. I'm sure you have an app for that. But in healthcare, it is not something we do. And in any fashion, and you can go into any form of payment in healthcare, and there is no single metric for spiritual health. We can talk about mental health. We can talk about depression, anxiety scores, mentation. Yeah, there's certain scales, if you will, but not necessarily on spiritual health. And what's been fun for me is understanding you at a deeper level, understanding where you've come from, things you've been through, and then also recognizing and actually witnessing you worship your creator when that wasn't top of mind. And that was fun for me. So that's why I do that. So if you were sitting across from someone, and perhaps you've done this too, but if you're sitting across from someone who is in a similar position that you once were, you're another patient, you're another person, you see someone living a life going down the same road that you were going down, knowing what you know now, what would you tell them?
You know, I keep having opportunities like that, and I'm still learning. That's a it's a tough one because and it ties back to what you said about what was on my face was defeat. I'm learning how to sit in that defeat longer instead
Mm,
of springing into solution mode because I could with what I know now, and I'm a fraction of what you 2 know, but I could write out a perfect plan for most humans that I meet. But until there's that desire to change, it doesn't matter. And, you know,
that's right.
how do I give them a single step or even better, how do I sit there and let them process what they're going through and then start from there?
You're definitely right. People have to be ready for change. And Troy and I have experienced that on the benefit side, working with employers, consulting for employers. I mean, we've delivered some fantastic solutions like whole health plan replacements, saves money, better benefits, easier access, higher touch points. And at the end of the day, we're going to deliver higher, better outcomes with less expense. And on more than one occasion, it's just like, oh man, it just feels like a lot of change. you know? And so, both from an employer benefits perspective and from a physician's perspective, you're absolutely right. And we take it from the place of, my position both in clinic and working with outside employers is really getting to know how people tick. Like you have to understand how the business runs, you have to understand how this person's life runs and what's important to them and really where the deficits or the problems exist. And so
Right.
that that's I would say that's the art of medicine is the relationship, you know, and you've mentioned this to me before, and you're not the only patient. I have had this happen quite a bit where patients will say, you just know the right question to ask, don't you? Because you and not rudely, not to put you in your place, but it's just the one question that makes you stop and recognize the reality of what the situation is. And I consider that education, but it's taking the inventory of where someone is, understanding them and trying to reach them at that level. So you've kind of told us your story, what it's done in your life and your family and kind of how it gives you a different perspective. What are you most proud of in the last 3 years?
That I've stuck with it.
Yeah,
Good for
that's a
you.
perfect
Um,
answer. Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, it and that's what I saw pretty quickly is I love to research, like, I do not have a formal diagnosis, and maybe this is when we do it. Maybe this is when you finally diagnose me with ADHD, but I will go down rabbit holes of research, and once I made that commitment to change, I started researching what health and longevity and all that. I don't know how many hours of podcasts I've listened to on that stuff, and what was shocking and sobering was just how many people have lost 80, 90 pounds, and then they go back up.
Mm.
So, yeah, here I am 3 almost you know what? Yeah, I'm 3 years into this journey, and success looks like just keeping at it. Success looks like an imperfect plan done consistently rather than, I could be getting into the gym more, I could be taking more steps, I could be eating better, right? There's always room for improvement, but I'm happy I'm happy where I'm at and where I'm headed. So
What's it done for you, that consistency, and how has that translated into
Yeah.
your business?
so, you know
I mean, you told us a little bit ago that you were like just hated the business you were in,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I'd love to finish that thread up.
Sure.
So 2023 and 24 was me focusing on my health, getting my family getting our health in order, getting that whole house in order. I think of my life in like I'm building houses. So in 2025 I started realizing just how many stories I had around money and around what success looked like because I still felt like a failure. Even though I've lost the weight, even though I've transformed my health, all of the things. And I started digging into that and actually used ChatGPT a lot and came out of that with a plan that I was like, dude, you are flying blind with finances. You don't know you're avoiding your finances just like you were
Mm.
your A1C and things like that. And so I hired a fractional CFO and it is just with that clarity, I'm having the time of my life in my business. I'm learning how to delegate. I'm learning how to be consistent. In sales. So I handle the sales in Cool Foam, and I have a vision of where we want to go as a company, how we're going to get there, and then what's next after I get that accomplished. So it's transformed. It's so much bigger than business. Like this journey has transformed my whole mindset and and my spirituality like finding finding the joy right here right now and also reaching for something bigger and I
So
wouldn't
it gives you
trade
hope for the future, huh, Corey?
so think direct primary care except for contractors so I want to I no I have started something called Brave Build. And my vision for Brave Build is Most contractors wanna do the right thing. They're great folks. They don't have the tools. They don't have they don't have the support that they need. So, what I wanna do is help contractors determine where they wanna be in their business. If they wanna be out on the job, cool. Let's get them a support staff in the office. Let's get them automated systems for follow-ups, for quotes, for all the things. And then I want to also so I wanna provide that as a service with affiliates and things like that, but then I also wanna bring the mindset piece. And that's why I'm so curious on how to do this better because I'm I'm a doctor for contractors and their businesses. How do I ask those questions? How do I how do I help them when they feel defeated, when they face it head on? And how do we help them change?
That's awesome. So you've got new vision for your life, don't you?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, I love it.
Thank
I love it. And Corey, I'm fortunate and thankful both on a local level and the people I've gotten to know across the country when we get into such a direct relationship and have the time to dig in to our patients' health. We're not just improving their health. We are improving their families, we're improving their businesses. And your story is one that I love and that's unique, but the big picture is we're actually able to do this in so many different patients' lives and families, and I see the work that we're doing as meaningful and impactful for that reason. And
Yes,
you're a good reminder of that for me. If your story could help one person listening today, what would you hope they take away from it?
you can change, you can do it, and it's not gonna be perfect, it's gonna be an imperfect journey, but you can change your mindset, you can change your beliefs, and just take one step and then add another step, and anyone who's interested, reach out to me. Yeah, I am passionate about helping people wherever they're at, and they don't have to look like me or their life doesn't need to look like mine.
I love it that
I
you
love it.
took ownership over your own health because I see myself as a guide. I can't do the things that you did for you. And you've on a couple of occasions tried to give me credit for things. I'm like, look, Corey, like this, none of this is me. Took the you took the decision on your shoulders. You do the daily decisions. You're the one living this life. I'm just privileged to be a part of it and proud of you for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you for that. I did have a desire to change, but I needed help, and I'm so grateful for how you showed up and how you've continued to show up. And, you know, one of my favorite parts of, my life so far is going to the Hint Summit with you in Denver
Mm,
or a couple years ago, and I like, being able to spend that much time with you and just to see your passion for direct primary care and to see your brain just going just all the different directions,
Yeah,
and seeing that whole group of doctors and everything was amazing. So, keep
yeah.
going.
Well, that
You're doing things that matter, and I love it.
that was a highlight for me too. That was so much fun. So little context there. Hint is a software company that helps us do our membership management, sort of the financial tool for us to keep track of our memberships and everything. And they do an annual summit. And I found out that Terra Health Coaching with John Deeser and Cecilia Lapoli were going to be there. And I was like, oh my gosh, how cool would this be to take Corey up and he gets to see the people and meet them face to face? Because that was all virtual. We didn't say that earlier, but that was all virtual
right.
health coaching. And to get a chance to go see them face to face, these people who helped change your life, I was like, this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be a blast. I can't wait. And it was. It was so much fun. And the funniest part that I didn't think about until we got there was how many people I introduced you to. Hi, this is Corey. He's one of my patients. And the look on their face was like, one of your patients? You brought a patient to a conference? Like, what? Why would you do that? Like, that seems so weird. And, we kind of quickly realized that we probably should have had a speaking gig on stage because we never patients never show up to the healthcare conferences. And I got to thinking about that's interesting. Patients don't show up to this. Sure, there's people. I mean, everyone's a patient somewhere, but we don't really highlight the
Mhm,
actual work
right.
at the very personal level. And yeah, it's kind of it was enjoyable in so many different ways. But yeah, that's pretty cool. And I think there's a lot of people in the background in healthcare that patients, we talk about this all the time, Troy, that healthcare is made up of this army of people, mostly that need to be there, some that
Right.
don't. But there's this army of people, and it's like, what's their role? And what are they doing to change the lives of patients? And it's very rare that patients ever get to be in the room with sort of the bigger picture. And so it was really interesting for me to hear your perspective of what you see these both physicians and the vendors there. You were looking at this going, "Wow, look at this. All these people are doing everything they can to try to provide the greatest experience that I can have as a patient." And that was really cool.
You know, I've been to a lot of different conferences. That's the first direct primary care conference I've ever been to.
Or
Maybe the last.
healthcare?
Yeah, or healthcare.
Yeah.
No, so I used to be an EMT. I've been to
Okay.
EMT but I have never I mean, it's just one of the things. You go to a conference and you're gonna meet some people that you just walk away from trying to roll your eyes back down to where you can see, because I did not have, and this is true, I did not have one interaction there where I'm like, "Yeah, I don't like that person." Everyone was so, I mean, it was a little awkward a few times that because they'd be like, "What? You're a patient?" And then they'd slow down and think about it, and they're like, "Oh, that's really cool. Oh, tell me your story." And I mean, I had every table I sat at, every interaction that I had, what stood out to me is how the whole industry is about how do we help our patients? How do patients win?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Patient
Love it.
wins.
absolutely.
Yeah, love it, love it. Well, Corey, it's been a pleasure having you on here. It's easier to see you over a video and talk than it is you delivering your next broken bone to my driveway. We didn't cover that. I think that's
Yeah.
what number we've had about 3 of those in the last 2 years now that your family's active and, exercising. That's the only downside to the whole thing, right? It's
Yeah.
all these fractures, but,
Yeah. None of mine. Yeah, my 2
true.
boys and
Oh
Suzanne
my
with a dog
goodness.
bite and all, yeah, and that's what I love too is we just show up on your driveway.
Yep. It's the
Well, and
reverse
isn't
house
that
call.
awesome? Because again, the foundation of everything we're talking about is relationship. And isn't it cool that you can go down the road and go to your doctor and say,
Yeah,
"Doc, help me," and it's at his
yeah,
house. You don't have
yeah,
to
Yeah.
wait for a clinic. You don't have to wait for an appointment. You just have that relationship that says, "I'm here to help," and you go and take advantage of that. That is so cool.
yeah, it's and this may have happened before I decided to get my health in order, but, my youngest son gashed his knee open taking the trash out, a bottle gashed his knee open, and so I text a picture to Doctor Bushman, and he's like, "Alright, get over here," and I was outside griddling food. I I did something with the food. We came in, you stitched up our youngest son, and we were back in home for dinner.
I don't even remember.
That's the way it's supposed to be, right?
This has been a while. I have to remember
I
that.
Yeah, that was probably in 21 or 22.
Wow,
But,
yeah.
I mean, that was one of the things that just blew my mind. I mean, I think about going to an urgent care or an emergency department. I mean, that would have been a 4 or 5-hour ordeal,
Right.
and, I mean, you just got it done, and we kept rolling with our evening.
It's awesome.
That's so
He still
great.
limps, but it's
I
alright.
guess I don't remember the details because no one gave me dinner that night, so next
Yeah.
time I'll negotiate a little bit better. So, anyway, well, thanks again, Corey, for being on, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Patients Win, where we get to dig into the human side of medicine, and we get to ask that question of, did the patient win? Everything we do in healthcare should start and end with that question. Did the patient win? And that is our goal. That's our mission. And that's what we're here to talk about. In every episode that you listen to, that story is going to come back to what did we do? We don't care if you're in business, if you're in insurance, you're in the hospitals, you're a patient, wherever you may be, that's the theme. We want to know that our work and the efforts that we put into our daily lives effectively help people win. Thanks again, Corey, and thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Jonathan and Troy.